Hey everybody, welcome to my 27-week video, aka my worst week of pregnancy I've had so far. Oh, don't mind us, Oakley. We're not doing anything important here. He doesn't care. He's really having a hard time finding where he wants to sleep. I get it. It's me every single night about 5 a.m. 27 weeks, the baby is the size of a cucumber and it weighs about 2.2 pounds. So this week has been torture, basically. I was flying back out to Germany to see Jeremy, where I will be having the baby. So thankfully it was my last flight because it was not enjoyable in any way. First of all, we were in the Toronto airport for 3 hours waiting to drop our bags off. And by the time we got up to the front, we had 8 minutes until it was the flight cut off to put our bags in. So that was like super sketchy. And I was so stressed out. Thankfully, my mom and dad were with me, but then I had to rush to get through security, get to the security line, and there's the biggest, longest line ever. And all of a sudden, I felt my stomach go super, super, super hard, like somebody was grabbing me from behind. And I was so scared. This is what's called a Braxton Hicks. Now, I hadn't had one yet, and so I was like panicking that something was wrong. I'm holding Oakley, I have a backpack and a purse, my stomach's rock hard, and I start crying in the lineup, and people are looking at me like, this broad's crazy. And I just couldn't stop. I didn't care. I had no pride. I was just sitting there crying. A lady came up. She's like, "Are you okay?" One of the workers at the airport. By the way, if you happen to be watching this, I love you. Thank you so much. And she pulled me into a separate line where I could go and thankfully didn't have to stand any longer. But it was really scary. So this was my first experience with Braxton Hicks. I've had quite a few since then. And now I kind of am getting more used to it and realizing it's not that dangerous. But it was super, super alarming. So I finally get through there, get on the flight, Oakley's there, and as we take off, my stomach keeps having Braxton Hicks about every 15 minutes. And I can't Google to find out if that's okay, which probably is a good thing because I would have convinced myself I was going into labor. But all I could think of was like, oh, if I go into labor here on this plane, like this is just gonna be brutal. What am I gonna do? Where do I go? And of course, psyching myself out like crazy. Thankfully, I'm just a big hypochondriac and it was all okay. I know I definitely didn't drink enough water on the flight. I didn't sleep, but I made it. So I get to Germany and I sleep all day and I sleep all night, and the next day I have my diabetes appointment. Okay, so this is called the glucose screening. So what they do is they test for a certain number. So in Germany, for example, that number is 135. So if you score less than 135 on the test, you're fine. You're not screened, you don't have to go for the test because it's quite low and your body is handling the sugar well. I scored a 155, so that was not a good sign. I knew something was probably wrong when the other girls who had had the glucose screening here were like, "Oh, wasn't it so sweet? I wanted to throw up." And I literally didn't even think it was sweet at all. It tasted like a super mild cranberry juice to me, and I thought it was delicious, and I would have had a few more cups if they offered it to me. So that's when I probably should have realized that my body isn't quite understanding sugar the way I thought it would. So I wait the weekend, not even thinking anything about it. I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. It's no problem. I call Monday morning because I've been having like other sort of stomach pains, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, you failed your glucose screening. You have to come back on Wednesday and do the 2-hour test." And I was like, "What? No, this can't be happening. What do you mean? I eat chocolate all the time. My body's fine." Well, apparently it's not. Today I went and had my 2-hour glucose test. They did both arms. So what they do is they have you drink this delicious drink. I will stand by the fact that the drink is good. I don't care. Everyone told me it was bad. I wanted more. So I drank it down, and then they took my blood. They took my blood after 1 hour, and then they took my blood after 2 hours. Now, if you haven't had somebody take blood out of the same hole twice in an hour, then you haven't lived, because that is an experience. Also, have some sort of infection that they found in my blood, so I am on antibiotics for that. We are assuming it's something to do with the plane ride and being dehydrated. So anyway, we're fighting that off as well, which has just been super great at this stage of pregnancy. So at this point, at the end of the week, we've established that I potentially have diabetes. I potentially have some sort of infection. On top of everything, we have my mother and father-in-law and my sister-in-law who just got into town and are visiting. So I'm really trying to like be up and wanting to do things even though I just don't feel great. And to top it all off, my poor sister-in-law today either developed the flu or food poisoning. So I've been barricaded in this room because I don't want to catch it if it's the flu. That has been the most awesome 27-week pregnancy video you'll probably ever see. Basically, everything that could potentially have happened this week has happened. I'll be able to tell you next week whether I do have diabetes or if I don't. And if I do, they're sending me to a nutritionist where I will have to cut out all sugar from my diet, as well as like any white breads like pizza and pasta. I actually feel like I'm gonna cry thinking about it because I love food so much. But for the baby, I will do it. I'm actually tearing up. This is so embarrassing. Update on my weight, I am still 30 pounds up, which means I actually lost 2 pounds over the last few weeks, but I would assume that's because of traveling and perhaps the stress of this potential diabetes. It's amazing how quickly I changed from eating pasta and pizza at every meal to salads real quick, so that might have something to do with it. Before I go, I will show you the belly. She's been kicking lots. I've been loving feeling her all the time. And she also really enjoyed the diabetes sugar water drink because as soon as I gave it to her, she was like, ooh, woo, I like that. Give me more. But they wouldn't give me more, unfortunately. All right, let's see the belly. We'll start with our front view. As you can see, our line is still coming in strong. Belly button is still hanging on by a thread. She's not quite out yet, but she will be soon. Side view 1. Side view 2. I truly feel like I have a torpedo sticking out of my stomach at this point. So I'm sorry this week isn't all that exciting, but it's been a very important week for me, and I'm hoping that next week everything kind of sorts itself out. The infection goes away from my blood, whatever that is, and the diabetes is a no. So keep your fingers crossed for me. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week at 28 weeks. Oh, next week is third trimester. We made it through 2. Woo! Okay, bye guys.